But in this particular case, you're talking about a couple of smaller markets. You got Indianapolis, which is the 25th largest market in the country, and you got Oklahoma City, which is the 47th largest market in the country.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you that the West Finals, the ratings were already down 17% from last year.
Wow.
OKC versus Mini. Indiana and New York, that's different because you got the biggest market in the country, right? And the Knicks, and there are Knicks fans everywhere. So the question is, do you think that the country is interested in this NBA Finals matchup, generally speaking?
Well, I can say this to start. We're talking stats, right? So this is the first time since 2007 that
Christmas,
the two,
right?
the two teams in the finals have not played on Christmas Day, which tells you already that the NBA wasn't, I wouldn't say prepared, but they weren't expecting
right.
these two younger teams to finally get here and get over the hump and make it to the finals. I think, they were banking on maybe one of those LA teams to make it out of the West, or, maybe I don't even know who else would, a Denver team.
Yeah,
you know
Denver,
what I mean?
right.
I think they were kind of banking on them to kind of make their way back here before they went and fired Mike Malone and everything like that. And, with the East, no one. If you would have told me, even there was a tweet that I saw that Tyrese Haliburton put out saying the other day, like in April, our expectations are to make it to the finals and make it to, win a championship. And I was like, huh? That was in April. That wasn't even that long ago. I was like, huh? You're going to make it, you win a championship.
Well, yeah, you look at the Cavs and the Celtics, obviously, just to name a couple of teams in the East that you put ahead of the Indiana Pacers, right?
Yeah, I mean, even the Knicks, you know what I mean? But at that time, in that, in that landscape, I would have thought the Knicks could have got it done. Obviously, as we went throughout the playoffs, I predicted the Pacers to win this series against the Knicks once we got to the start of the series. But, that's just, watching basketball and seeing, the X's and O's and seeing how it's playing out. But, yeah, I mean, this matchup, I think what we are going to get is going to be an extremely fast-paced basketball game between these two.
They're both up-tempo.
They're up-tempo. It's going to be exciting. They both have defensive identity, guys who really, scrap and fight over screens. And, I think it's going to be one of those chippy, physical NBA Finals. And as you compare it to the ones in the post-COVID era, you know what I mean? I think it's going to be, it might even be one of the best ones that we get, I think last year's was underwhelming, for a lot of people. I think even when you go back, I mean, the one that I think it competes with, unfortunately, sorry, Boston, is the one with the Warriors and the Celtics.
Right.
You know what I mean? That was a pretty good series between those two. But you look at the Denver and the Miami Heat series, that was pretty unforgettable. I mean, pretty forgettable.
Pretty forgettable,
And then you even talk about the Suns versus Bucks. I mean, the Giannis 50 ball, that was a great moment. But other than that, that series is pretty forgettable as well.
Yeah.
So I think this might be one, where you talk about the dynamic between SGA and Hallie and, that guard play and what they're going to be able to do on the offensive end. And you're talking about the championship pedigree of a guy like Pascal Siakam, who's a real playoff riser and has been even Eastern Conference Finals MVP. You're going to see a lot of dichotomy between him and Jalen Williams and their battles that they're going to have, when they get switched onto each other. There's going to be a lot of great matchup-based basketball, even the Miles Turner versus the Chet Holmgren, who do a lot of the same things for their two teams. There's going to be a lot of great basketball played in between the lines on this one. And if you're a huge basketball fan, I think this finals is going to be really fun for you.
It's funny you mentioned the Christmas stat, right, since 2007. They played on December 26th. They played on December 26th.
That is funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was a great game, and it was almost foreshadowing in terms of what kind of games you're going to see in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
And, SGA had 45 points. The Pacers had a lead late, but SGA had 16 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The Thunder, one of the things they do well is they protect the ball. They don't turn the ball over, right? And you look at the turnover differential, right? Best in basketball. And so the Pacers can't turn the ball over because OKC in transition is murderous, right?
Yeah.
So they have to be careful of that. But, what I like about the Pacers is their resiliency. And we've seen multiple times in this postseason, right? And going back to the Eastern Conference Finals, game one, they were down by 14. Right? Thought that game was over with. Yeah. but they showed resiliency. They came back. I think there were 2 separate occasions where they were down by 7 in the playoffs with less than a minute to go, and they came back and won those games. Right, and so that shows you that sort of intangible, right? That the numbers don't necessarily show you when you stack the teams side by side.
Right. Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah, I believe it was 3 times because you know, technically the 14 they were down 14 against the Knicks, but I think they were still down 7 within a minute. And then they obviously did it to the Cavaliers, and then they did it to the Milwaukee Bucks, which was an infamous game. You know, with Giannis and Tyrese Haliburton's dad. Getting into it. You know,
Mr. Haliburton watching from home.
Right, yeah, he's back in the building.
He's back now.
He's back in the building now. I did want to ask you, you know, the Thunder are huge betting favorites. What can the Pacers do to keep this series close? I know you talked about turnovers.
Yeah, they can't turn the ball over.
Is there anything else that you see with this team that could give them a fighting chance, like maybe a Halliburton big games or a big series out of him?
Keep lighting it up from downtown, man. Aaron Nesmith has shot 50% in the playoffs from downtown. Right?
They're over 40% from 3 as
Leads
a team.
the playoffs.
As a team, they're over 40%, which is great.
So those are that's I would imagine how your best chance of beating the Pacers is to shoot lights out. I know, right? What a game plan. Make your shots. But they've shown they can do that. You know, and so if they can continue to do that while not turning the ball over, not allowing OKC to get in transition, you know, and then maybe try to frustrate SGA a little bit as much as you can, right? Because everything goes through him in that offense.
That's a big part of it. That's step one. You have to be able to throw different looks at SGA. You have to be able to throw some Andrew Nembhard minutes at him, some Aaron Nesmith minutes at him. When Tyrese gets switched onto him, which he inevitably will, he has to be able to fight and give him a good look and send him into the bigs, you know what I mean? And Miles Turner is going to have to do a good job of erasing shots. Thomas Bryant is going to have to do a good job of erasing shots for them. If they're going to be able to win this game, their bigs have to play a big role in this series, because we give a lot of credit to the Jalen Williams, the Lou Dorts, the SGAs. Those guys do a lot. But what we're not talking about is the Hardensteins, the Chet Holmgrens.
Oh, you think the Knicks miss him?
Yes. 100%. You know, so when you're talking about the difference maker of this Thunder team is their depth, their ability to bring guys off the bench who are going to bring them good minutes. Jalen Williams with a Y out of Arkansas, he comes in the game and gives you big minutes from time to time. He was huge in that Nugget series for that Thunder team. So I'm interested to see how Mark Daigneault is going to face off against Rick Carlisle, because I think that's really where this game is going to come down to. If Mark Daigneault can coach at least to 90% of the level that Rick Carlisle is, because I think Rick has an advantage here in being an NBA champion already with the Dallas Mavericks back in the day. He has that advantage here. If Mark Daigneault can even coach 90% to that level, then we're going to have a really good final series, but I think it's all for naught. I'm going to tell you right now. I think I'm going to take Thunder in 5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just don't think, you know, the Pacers have been a great story all postseason long, right? Beating Giannis, beating the Cavs, beating the Knicks, right? And, you know, you get to the NBA Finals, and it's just like, all right, you know, it's getting close to midnight here, I think, with the Pacers. You know, just looking at the matchup on paper, you know, they're the 6th biggest favorite, I think, in NBA Finals history.
That's
minus 750. Which is just crazy.
That's incredible.
Right, and that's, you know, we started the conversation off talking about who's going to watch this, right? It's just like, all right, well, there's another factor right there. It's not only the fact that we're talking about 2 smaller markets in the NBA, we're talking about the odds being stacked up against the Pacers big time, and people looking at that and saying, oh, that's a waste of time. I don't want to watch this series because I don't think it's going to be a good one, right? But to your point, and you talked a little bit about it earlier, you didn't think the Pacers had a shot in the playoffs, but once you started to watch them play, that's when you figured it out. People need to watch this team, watch these teams play, and they need the Pacers to make it a series in order for it to happen. Right?
Going back, because you brought up something that like triggered me in that sentence.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a good way.
Okay, cool.
It was one of those things where I'm looking at this final series and I'm thinking back to a final series where there was an unproven Thunder team, you know, back in the day, who had a lot of stars, had 3 future MVPs on their team. So we knew there was a lot of talent there. Obviously, LeBron James being on the other side was going to make that final series one that people were watching. People were already grasped to the fact that LeBron could win his first NBA Finals. But some people were tuning out because they were saying, well, LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh, they're way better than this young team. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's not going to have a chance. As soon as the Thunder went and won Game 1, a lot of people tuned back in. So if the Pacers could go out on Thursday night and somehow in OKC with all the white shirts that are going to be filled up in OKC's arena, or blue, I don't know what they're doing if it's white or blue, but I know they wear their shirts, which is really cool actually, that we're going to get a matchup between two finals teams that actually make people wear their shirts.
Yeah.
We'll see, we'll have real playoff atmosphere in this finals because of that, because you're going to have everybody in wearing their shirts, locked in, loud, two cities that really do care about their basketball teams as a whole with OKC and Indianapolis. It will be cool to see if the Pacers can go win that game against the Thunder, how many people rush to watch Game 2, because there will be parity. I think the parity is the biggest factor, not the small market.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think Game 1 is huge for the Pacers, and it's huge for the NBA, because I think you're right. I think that if the Pacers win Game 1, now there's intrigue. Now there's like, oh, wait a minute. I thought OKC was supposed to run away with this thing, and now, they lose at home in Game 1?
Especially if they go away with the theatrics and fireworks that they've left every single other team that we just talked about, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Bucks, with, you know what I mean, winning a game in those theatrical ways. Tyrese Haliburton doing choking celebrations, doing the, swinging his legs, celebrations and all this other stuff. If we get those kind of theatrics, then people will rush back to watch Game 2. Before we move on and talk about the NBA draft that's coming up in a couple of weeks, Tyrese Haliburton did end up losing Eastern Conference Finals MVP to Pascal Siakam.
Oh, man, he was about ready to walk up and get his trophy. Oh.
He looked like that Drewski meme during the NBA All-Star Weekend, the celebrity game. Did you think he deserved to win that trophy? Did you think he got snubbed out of that?
So I don't think he got snubbed. I could have seen him winning the award, right?
Yes.
So Pascal Siakam had a great series. I think he had 3 30-point games.
Yes.
Right? So I didn't have a problem with – it's sort of the same conversation that we had last year in the NBA Finals with Jalen and Jason, right? Like, you understand why Jalen Brown won the Finals MVP, but you could have seen Tatum win it. So I didn't have a problem. Did you?
No, I didn't have a problem with it from the standpoint of defense. I think offensively – Tyrese has been a great light for them. He probably was the better player consistently offensively. I think Game 5 was the stinker that he put up. But, I mean, Pascal didn't have a great game in Game 5 either.
Right.
I think it was the defensive efforts that Pascal gives their team that really got those writers to, vote him just over the hump. But, I mean, it was 5-4. So it's hearsay. I could have saw Tyrese winning the award, and I wouldn't have been upset with that. I also wasn't upset with this award and going to Pascal as well. He's a champion. He played like one. I think he deserved that in that moment.
Yeah, so I'm with you, man.
We'll see what happens in the NBA Finals.